Good morning, biologists.
Good morning,
Welcome to week
biologists.
3, the process of science. So we're going to do a quick intro video to get you up to speed on what we're going to be up to this week. So let's dig in. So first off, our essential question for this week is, how do we know in science? How do we gather information and data and use it to be able to know things? On the left-hand side of this presentation, you'll see that we have something that is basically what you've seen before, a process, step-by-step process for the scientific method. That is one way that science happens, although it rarely follows this linear step-by-step process, exactly like this diagram shows. But it does use the creating and testing of hypotheses, and oftentimes it flows from good questions or good ideas that we observe from the world around us. There are two main ways that we use, two processes we use to know things in science. One is this idea of hypothesis-driven science, and the other one is called discovery science. So we'll take a look at those this week. Our week 3 discussion will bring us around the water cooler, virtually of course, and will help us to understand how we know things using the process of science. What are the steps? What can lead to the best possible information and answers to questions in science? So during this week's discussion, post 2 times. Make sure you're reflecting on course content, taking a look at what you understand, what you know, what questions you have about course content, and then your second post should engage in the discussion and also extend the conversation. And so thinking about how you can add more to the discussion throughout the week. Looking forward to those conversations this week. Let's take a quick look at our kudos for this week. So the things you want to be in the know about. Here are the vocabulary for this week. A lot of it has to do with the elements of an investigation, things such as hypotheses, inferences, predictions. So we're looking at some studies and identifying the parts and pieces of those studies. This week, for understanding, we should know and understand some things about trees. We should also review some things about this process of gathering information, and also the order of steps. Right, and then lastly, doing, we're going to be identifying some characteristics of trees. We're going to be collecting our own data, analyzing that data, and then lastly, you're going to be communicating your results. So make sure you take a look at those kudos throughout the week. You've probably been noticing some things happening as seasonal changes have occurred. It's getting cooler. Also, the sun is not staying up for quite as long anymore. And these changes affect living things too. So we're going to take a look at trees. We're going to look at what cyclical changes are happening with our trees. You'll notice that there are some changes in color of the leaves, and also eventually those leaves are going to fall. So we're going to look at phrenology, which is basically the observation of cyclic patterns in living things. And then we're going to get into another simulated experience whereby we can develop other ways of knowing trees. This week we're going to be going back over to gizmos and using a simulation to understand what things can be measured about a tree and what things that can tell us about a forest, be it individual organisms and a whole grove of trees in general. So you're going to be practicing your manipulation of measuring devices during the simulation. Our biologist spotlight for this week is Aldo Leopold. You'll be introduced to him as a scientist researcher. And lastly, our hot hand investigation will be using a data set to analyze some data. So that's your quick intro to week number 3, the process of science. Have a great week, and as always, reach out with questions.